All right, Learning Target Two's video is adding, subtracting, and multiplying polynomial expressions. Most of the things that we're going to do in these notes are intuitive, things you already know. You're going to add like terms, subtract like terms, use the FOIL method to multiply, distribute, things that you already know. It's just now they're going to have more vocabulary associated with polynomials, like in number 1, adding two binomials. So if you're adding two binomials, you just take the first binomial, 2x plus 1, and add the x and add the 3. So you combine those like terms. 2x and x makes a 3x, and 1 and 3 makes a 4. So again, that's pretty much too intuitive. You could stack them and add 2x plus 1 and x plus 3, stack them up and add vertically and get 4 and 3x. So that's another option. With subtraction, again, you can do the same thing. You can subtract them individually, or you can stack them up and subtract them, but you're subtracting two trinomials. Three things, those are trinomials. All right, with subtraction, my personal preference is to distribute the subtraction sign and combine like terms. So x squared plus 2x plus 1 is going to be subtracted by 3x squared, so subtract 3x squared. Also subtract a negative x, and when you subtract a negative, it becomes plus. So that's the distributing the negative. When you subtract the negative x, it becomes plus x, and then distribute the negative to the negative 1, and that would be subtracting a negative 1 plus 1. And then combine your like terms, negative 2x squared, 2x and x makes 3x, and 1 makes 2. So final answer there. And again, you could stack them up, x squared plus 2x plus 1, and subtract 3x squared minus x minus 1. You just have to be careful and subtract them all. X minus a 3, 1x squared minus a 3x squared makes a negative 2x squared. 2x minus a negative x is 2x plus x, which would be plus 3x. And then positive 1 minus a negative 1 becomes 1 plus 1, 2. So you could do it that way as well. Here's a combination of multiplying and adding and subtracting. You've got 2 times a binomial, which distributes to make 2x plus 2. Then you're subtracting 3 times a binomial. So I personally like to distribute the negative 3. Negative 3 times x squared would be minus 3x squared. Negative 3 times x would be minus 3x. And then distribute the 5. So I'm going to add 5x squared. 5 times 2x would be 10x. And 5 times 3 would be plus 15. And then go through and add all your like terms. I'll start with the x squareds. So that would be 2x squared. Then there's a 2x there, a negative 3x there, and a 10x there. So 2 minus 3 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 10 would be 9x. And then last, the numbers 2 and 15 make plus 17. All right, multiplying a monomial times a trinomial. We actually just did that right here, a monomial times a trinomial. But now we're multiplying 2x times the trinomial, and this is where the Learning Target 1 sort of kicks in. 2x times x squared is 2x to the third. 2x times 3x gives you 6x squared, and 2x times 1 gives you 2x. All right, number 5, I'll pause the video, but this is the most commonly missed problem on the test because we got so many rules in this, these first 2 targets that a lot of people make up their own rule for number 5. So I'm going to pause the video, answer number 5, what you think it would be, A, B, C, D, or E, and then I'll explain. Again, pause the video if you didn't and try it yourself. But if you chose A or C, it's a very common mistake. It's not A, it's not C. And I'll prove it with this. I'll put the number 1 in for 3. I'll put a 1 right there. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. And if you square negative 2, you get 4. If I put the same number 1 into the answer C, 1 squared minus 9 gives me negative 8. And if I put 1 squared plus 9, I get 10. Neither of those numbers are 4. The answer A and the answer C is not the same as x minus 3 squared in parentheses. All right, so what do you do? Well, you multiply x minus 3 times x minus 3. That's how you square something. And then your mind kicks in and says, that's a FOIL, F-O-I-L, so x squared minus 3x plus 9, and you get negative 6x. in the middle. So it should have said x squared minus 6x plus 9. The answer was D. All right, last, I think last two, multiplying three binomials. I noticed that in x plus, when I'm multiplying number 6, that the last two binomials are actually conjugates, x minus 2 and x plus 2. So my preference here would be to multiply those first. If you're multiplying three things, 2 times 3 times 4, you can multiply 2 times 3 and get 6, and then multiply that by 4 and get 24. Or you could do 2 times 3 times 4 this way, 3 times 4, and then multiply it by 2 and get 24 that way. I'm going with this option because I'm going to multiply the 3 times the 4, the second two parentheses. So again, figuratively, I'm multiplying the 3 and the 4. I'm multiplying x minus 2 times x plus 2. So FOIL, x squared plus 2x minus 2x plus 4 gives me x squared. I should have been minus 4. I think I said minus 4, but wrote plus 4. So x squared minus 4 is what you get when you multiply x minus 2 times x plus 2. That's essentially getting 12. So I still got to multiply it by 2. I'm got to multiply the x minus 4 times the x plus 1, which is just another FOIL, F-O-I-L. First, x cubed, outer minus 4x, inner plus 1x squared, and last minus 4. Personally, I like to put them in order. X cubed first, then plus x squared, then minus 4x and minus 4. And there's no like terms, so that's just the final answer. If there had been like terms, we would have combined them. All right, then the last problem, example 7. Since there aren't any conjugates being multiplied, it doesn't matter which one you multiply first. I'll just stick with multiplying the last two binomials first, and then whatever answer I get, I'll multiply it times x plus 1. All right, so FOIL, x times x times 3, negative 2 times x, and negative 2 times 3. That would be x times x squared, x times 3, 3x, negative 2 times x, negative 2x, and negative 2 times 3, negative 6, for an answer of x squared plus x minus 6. Now I'm going to distribute, now it turned into a binomial times a trinomial. So it's still distribute. So I'm going to distribute the, I'll color coordinate this. In black, I'll distribute the x to the x squared, the x to the x, and the x to the negative 6. In red, I'll distribute the 1 to the x squared, the 1 to the x, and the 1 to the negative 6. So I'm going to have 3 black answers and 3 red answers, and then combine whatever like terms show up. X times x squared gives me x cubed. X times x gives me positive x squared. X times negative 6 gives me negative 6x. Now in red, 1 times x squared gives me positive 1x squared. 1 times x gives me positive 1x. And 1 times negative 6 gives me negative 6. The like terms, let's see. We've got an x squared there and an x squared there. We've got a negative 6x there and an x there. So when you put your like terms together, your final answer will be x cubed. The 1x squared and the other 1x squared makes 2x squared. The negative 6x and the positive 1x makes negative 5x. And then the leftover minus 6. Final answer. So again, learning target 2 is basically what we already know. Distribute, distribute. We call it FOIL sometimes, but it's just distribute and combine like terms when they show up.